Hola, mi nombre es Luis Ore. My name is Luis Ore, and I'm with Mediators Beyond Borders. And I want to share something about how to go from debate to dialogue to foster better interactions. So we need to collaborate. We always say we need to work together. So we need to have some good dialogue, but sometimes it turns into debate. And it may look like that, or it may look like a conflict. But I want to share 8 tips to go from debate to dialogue. But first, let me share a couple images to reflect a bit. So what do you see here? Some may see a couple looking at water, a lake, the ocean, a river. Some others may see a baby. What do you see here? Some people can see a bird with something in its mouth. But if we see this image upside down, some may see a couple trees, a little island, a boat, a big fish, a couple, or somebody with a big hat. So you may have seen this lady before. Is she an old or a young lady? The people that sees an old lady see the profile of this lady looking at the bottom to the left side of your screen. And the people that sees a younger lady sees to the back of your screen. So who's right and who's wrong? The one that says that this lady is young or old. The fact is that when we interact with others, we jump into conclusions and we talk about our positions based on our own assumptions. So we are like reactive machines. We have this either or thinking, this I'm right and you're wrong. And it's typical. That's how our brain works. But we don't question our own thinking, and we do not make enough effort to really understand how we see differently, and how we give different reasonings or interpretations to what we see. So we look at information, we attribute some reasoning, some interpretation based on our perspectives, assumptions, emotion, motivations, and interests, and we reach some conclusions. But we don't realize that our reasoning, our interpretations are influenced by our own personal experiences, interests, assumptions, motivations, and preconceptions. As this hen, when she's looking at this picture, she may think, well, these animals, that's how they reproduce, because she sees the world as she experienced it, the world. And this is one of my favorite quotations, because the fact that I'm right does not mean you are wrong, meaning there might be more than one way to see things. So let me share some 8 tips to go from debate to dialogue. So we need to resist to the either or thinking. We are better off if we use a both and thinking. Take perspective, and because there might be more than one way to see the situation. Resist to the backward thinking, or don't play blame games. You did X, Y, and Z. So we are better off if we use a forward thinking. Let's play mutual games. Let's use a joint problem solving approach to address the challenges that we face. And resist to the intention attribution. So I would say go from intent to impact. Frame your conversation, frame your sharing as when X, Y, and Z happens, I feel ABC. Or when X, Y, and Z is said or acted, I feel this way. So share your own emotions without attributing intentions to the other side or to the other party. And a great tool that we have is the ladder of inference. And we use it to better understand the perspective of the other party, the other people, the other side. We may say something like this: please help me understand your view. What are you noticing, and what's your reasoning or interpretation of what you have noticed to arrive to that conclusion? we also can use this to explain our own point of view. What I'm noticed is this. My interpretation of this is this. And my conclusion as hypothesis, based on what I have seen so far, is this. So we are better off going up and down this ladder of inference because we are looking at information, we attribute some meaning, and then we reach a conclusion. And we can help others understand how we see things if we explain what we are looking at, how we are interpreting that, and the conclusion that we are arriving. And if we are engaging with the other party, we can ask based on their conclusions how they're giving interpretation or reasoning to what they are seeing or what they are looking at. So the fifth tip is have an interest-based conversation. Talk about your interest, what you really, really care about, what's really important for you, meaning your needs, your concerns, your worries, your fears, your aspirations, your purposes, your hopes. Underline or what's motivating your position or your demands. You have talked about this or you have experienced or learned about this if you have heard Bill Urey in a prior session. Think creatively together about all possibilities, creative options, and possible solutions to address those multiple interests you both may have. So brainstorm creatively and suspend criticism and selection for later on. And use an objective criteria or a standard of fairness to prevent a contest of will when selecting among options or possible solutions. It helps to divide the pie, to select options, to make decisions based on objective information. And we can use something like, please help me understand what make it fair. So how can we come up with an option or a possible solution, selecting among many, but beyond a contest of will? It's not because you want it or because I want it. Let's use some objective criteria, a principle, and a standard, and study or research, something that goes beyond our naked will. And finally, the eighth tip that I want to share is take care of basic emotional needs to connect with the other party. Because dialogue is not just a rational process, it's also an emotional engagement exercise. And to connect with other, we need to address this because we all have the basic emotional need to be understood, appreciated, and respected. And also, we have the need to have a sense of belonging or the affiliation. Nobody wants to feel excluded. And also important is the sense of autonomy. We don't want decisions to be imposed on us. We value the freedom of making choices and making decisions about the things that will impact us. So a simple flow of creating mutual gains that's shared by my colleagues in the Consensus Building Institute is we need to prepare before engaging, explore when we connect with the other, and build together agreements, and then think about implementation. So we need to move from positions, from arguing who's right and who's wrong, from demands and extraction of concessions, and we need to focus on our needs, our priorities, our interests, what we really care about, what's important for us, and then we need to change or turn these needs and interests into options for mutual gain. So how can we address those needs and concerns that we may have? And then to start building agreements, we need to think about options and turning these options into agreements using these objective criteria or standard of fairness. And finally, we need to think about predictable surprises. What kind of things can happen in the future that will challenge the implementation of our agreements? And that's it. And 4 basic questions to get these to get into this creative move to create mutual gains is thinking why, to understand the interest behind the position or underlying the position, or what for, what's the purpose. We can play the what if game in order to brainstorm. So if these are interests, what if we do X, Y, or Z, and try to figure out if some of these options can address our different or multiple interests. And then think about this question that I already mentioned, is what make it fair? How can we be satisfied at the end of our conversation and having a feeling of that this agreement is fair because nobody is taking advantage of the other one and nobody is imposing solutions into us. And then we may think what might go wrong. So how can we make sure of how can we make sure of the implementation of our agreement? How can we make sure that in reality is going to be happening what we define or agree? So as Peter Drucker says, culture it's strategy for breakfast. And I love that expression because in my world means that it's useless to have the right tools and processes or strategies if we have the wrong paradigm or the wrong culture. So let's think of mutual gains and for better interaction. Thank you.